Jake Miller stood in the massive chamber of the Galactic Council, trying not to look impressed. 7 enormous thrones surrounded him, each designed for a different alien species. As a former Marine turned diplomatic officer, Jake had seen his share of combat, but representing all of humanity in first contact. That was a different kind of pressure. The council members began filing in. First came the Dravik, 9-foot-tall reptilians with scales that shimmered like polished metal. Their ambassador, Krex, moved with surprising grace for something so large. Next were the Xrill, insectoid beings with natural armor plating and compound eyes that seemed to take in everything at once. The Vorath entered as swirling clouds of luminescent gas, contained in specialized suits, their ability to manipulate electromagnetic fields evident in the subtle distortion around them. 4 other species completed the circle, each more alien than the last. Jake kept his face neutral, but inside, he felt distinctly small and fragile compared to these beings. He reminded himself that he wasn't here because of physical strength. He was here for his diplomatic skills. "The human representative may approach the center," announced a translator device. Jake walked forward and bowed slightly. "I bring greetings from Earth and the United Systems. We are honored by this opportunity for dialogue." The Dravik representative, Krex, leaned forward. His voice rumbled like distant thunder even through the translation system. "So these are the humans we've heard about. Barely evolved primates from a backwater solar system." A murmur ran through the chamber. Jake maintained his diplomatic smile. "They are smaller than reported," chittered the Xrill ambassador. "Such fragile bodies. No natural armor or weaponry." Jake cleared his throat. "What we lack in natural defenses, we make up for in adaptability and innovation." "Pretty words," Krex responded. "But the Galactic Council admits species based on what they contribute, not on promises and clever phrases." The Vorath representative's translation came through as a melodic series of tones. "The question before us is simple. Do humans qualify for membership? Their technology is primitive by our standards. Their bodies appear weak. Their lifespans are brief." Jake felt his patience wearing thin but kept his composure. "With respect, technological advancement isn't the only measure of a species' worth." "Then what is?" challenged Krex. "Perhaps a demonstration would be more convincing than words," Jake suggested. The council members exchanged looks. Finally, the Xrill ambassador clicked forward. "In the corner stands our ceremonial staff of greeting. It is made of densified core steel. 3 of my kind are typically needed to move it during ceremonies." Jake walked over to the staff. It was about 7 feet tall with intricate carvings. He studied it briefly, then wrapped his hands around it. The staff was heavy, very heavy, but his years as a Marine had prepared him for this moment. With careful movement, he lifted the staff and returned to the center of the chamber, holding it upright with apparent ease. The council chamber went silent. "Interesting," the Vorath's translation chimed. "The human's strength-to-size ratio exceeds our calculations." Krex narrowed his reptilian eyes. "A single demonstration proves little." Jake carefully returned the staff to its place. "Then perhaps you'll allow us further opportunities to demonstrate what humans can offer the Galactic Council." The 7 representatives conferred among themselves in their native languages. Jake waited, standing tall despite being the smallest sentient being in the room. Finally, the central throne, occupied by a crystalline being, glowed brighter. "The Council has decided. Humans will undergo formal assessment before membership consideration. You may have more to offer than appears at first glance." Jake nodded, keeping his expression neutral while feeling a small victory. First impressions mattered, and he'd just ensured humanity would get a second look. As he left the chamber, he heard Krex mutter to another council member, "Still, they're so small. How dangerous could they possibly be?" Jake stood at the docking bay of Nexus Station, waiting for Earth's newest representative to arrive. The council had decided that humans needed a formal assessment before membership consideration, and Jake had requested backup. The shuttle doors opened, and Olivia Bennett stepped out. She moved with the grace of the Olympic decathlete she was, her athletic frame belying the strength within. Her secondary qualification as a xenobiologist made her the perfect addition to the diplomatic team. "Welcome to Nexus Station," Jake said, shaking her hand. "How was the trip?" "Long," Olivia replied, looking around at the towering alien architecture. "So this is where we prove our worth." "This is it. The Council tests all potential member species here. They've designed a series of challenges for us, physical and psychological." As they walked through the station, aliens of various species stared at them. The humans were notably smaller than most galactic citizens, and whispers followed them down the corridors. "They don't think much of us, do they?" Olivia observed. "Not yet," Jake said with a smile. "That's about to change." The assessment began the next morning. Jake and Olivia entered a massive chamber converted into a testing arena. Council observers sat in elevated seats, instruments and recording devices capturing every detail. "First test, environmental adaptation," announced an automated voice. The arena transformed, gravity increasing slightly. Most species would find it uncomfortable, but Earth's gravity was already higher than the galactic average. Jake and Olivia moved normally while representatives from other candidate species visibly struggled. "Interesting," noted a Vorath observer, their gaseous forms swirling faster. "The humans appear unaffected by the gravity adjustment." The tests continued throughout the day. While the humans couldn't match the raw strength of the Dravik or the precision of the HFY, their endurance shocked the observers. During a long-distance running test, Olivia outpaced several physically larger aliens, maintaining her pace long after others had collapsed from exhaustion. "Their respiratory efficiency is remarkable," commented a council scientist, "and their thermal regulation allows sustained exertion." By the third day, a betting pool had formed among station residents. Would the humans qualify for council membership? Opinion was divided, but more aliens were placing bets in favor after watching Jake and Olivia perform. Krex, the Dravak ambassador who had been particularly dismissive of humans, watched the proceedings with growing irritation. After a test where Jake demonstrated human problem-solving abilities, Krex approached him. "Your species shows some surprising qualities," the towering reptilian admitted grudgingly. "But survival in the galaxy requires more than clever thinking. It requires strength and power." "Different kinds of strength exist," Jake replied diplomatically. Krex made a sound that the translator interpreted as a scoff. "Perhaps a more practical demonstration is needed. I propose a friendly combat exercise. You and me." The other council members murmured in disapproval. Such challenges weren't part of the formal assessment. Ambassador Krex, a HFY representative, chittered. "This is highly irregular." "It's a friendly demonstration," Krex insisted. "Nothing more. I'm curious about human combat capabilities." Jake knew this was a political trap. Refuse and humans would appear weak. Accept, and he'd face an opponent with natural armor and twice his strength. "I accept," Jake said calmly. "As a cultural exchange." Olivia pulled him aside. "Are you crazy? He's built like a tank." "Trust me," Jake whispered. "This is our chance to show them something important about humans. We don't need to win. We just need to surprise them." The news spread quickly through Nexus Station. The combat demonstration was scheduled for the following day, and almost every resident planned to attend. The humans were now the most discussed species on the station. Krex smiled, showing rows of pointed teeth. "Tomorrow, then. I look forward to our cultural exchange." The combat arena was packed with spectators from across the galaxy. Species that normally avoided each other sat side by side, united by curiosity about the upcoming demonstration. In the center, a circular platform was prepared for Jake and Krex. Jake stood in the preparation area, stretching his muscles. Olivia watched with concern. "Remember, this isn't about winning," she said. "It's about showing them what humans can do." Jake nodded. "Leverage and technique over raw power. That's the plan." When Jake stepped onto the platform, the size difference between him and Krex became starkly apparent. The Dravak stood nearly 9 feet tall, scales gleaming under the lights, powerful muscles rippling beneath his natural armor. Jake, by comparison, looked almost fragile. "The rules are simple," announced the X-Shrill moderator. "The demonstration ends when one participant yields or is unable to continue. No lethal force is permitted." Krex bared his teeth in what might have been a smile. "I will try not to damage Earth's representative too severely." Jake simply nodded and assumed a ready stance. The signal was given, and Krex immediately charged forward, his massive arms swinging toward Jake. The human dodged with surprising speed, using the Dravak's momentum against him. As Krex passed, Jake landed a precise strike to a joint between armor plates. Krex grunted in surprise and turned more cautious now. The audience murmured. The human was faster than expected. "Interesting tactics," Krex said, "but speed alone won't save you." The Dravak attacked again, this time with more control. Jake blocked when necessary, redirected force when possible, and struck at vulnerable points when openings appeared. He couldn't match Krex's strength, but his marine combat training gave him options. 15 minutes into the demonstration, both participants showed signs of exertion. Krex had landed several powerful blows that would have incapacitated most opponents, but Jake kept fighting. The human was bruised and breathing hard, yet his eyes remained focused. "Your endurance is impressive," Krex admitted during a brief pause. Most species would have yielded by now. Before Jake could respond, an alarm blared throughout the station. Red emergency lights began flashing. "Attention all station residents," came an automated voice. "Security breach detected. Emergency lockdown initiated." The doors to the arena sealed shut with heavy metal barriers. Confusion spread through the crowd as security protocols activated. Suddenly, the main entrance exploded inward. Through the smoke came armed figures, tall, gray-skinned aliens with 4 arms and specialized battle armor. "Vex!" shouted someone in the crowd. "We're under attack." Panic erupted. Most spectators scrambled for cover or froze in fear. The council members present tried to organize a response, but confusion reigned. Jake immediately assessed the situation. "Olivia," he called out. She was already moving toward him. "We need to secure the civilians," Jake said rapidly. "Get them behind those support columns for protection." Without hesitation, they began directing the panicked aliens toward safer positions. Jake grabbed a piece of metal debris to use as a makeshift shield. Krex watched in surprise as the 2 humans, despite their smaller size, took command of the situation. The Dravak ambassador shook off his momentary shock and joined them. "The Vex are raiders and slavers," Krex explained quickly. "They target high-value locations like Nexus Station." More explosions rocked the station. Through the commotion, Jake noticed something interesting. While many species were paralyzed with fear, humans weren't the only ones responding to the crisis. Individual members of various species were stepping up, but they lacked coordination. "Krex, we need to organize a defense," Jake said. "Can you coordinate with the other strong combat species? Olivia and I will handle evacuation of the non-combatants." The Dravak looked at Jake with new respect. "You surprise me, human. Your combat instincts activate quickly." "Fighting isn't just about size," Jake replied, already moving toward a group of trapped civilians. "It's about adaptability." As the Vex forces pushed deeper into the station, the humans' quick thinking and ability to function under extreme stress became evident to all watching. The assessment of humanity had taken an unexpected turn. The Vex invasion spread throughout Nexus Station like a virus. Emergency barriers failed as the 4 armed raiders disabled security systems one by one. In the sealed arena, Jake, Olivia, and Krex had managed to organize the trapped aliens into something resembling order. "They're methodical," Jake observed, watching a security feed he'd managed to access. "This isn't random. They're looking for something." A small group of council representatives huddled nearby, including members of the Exhril and Vorith species. The Exhril ambassador's mandibles clicked anxiously. Our species evolves for specific ecological niches, the insectoid being explained. The Dravak are natural defenders. The Vorith manipulate energy fields, but none of us are adapted for this kind of chaos. Jake nodded thoughtfully. Humans don't have specialized evolutionary adaptations. We're generalists. It makes us adaptable. Just then, the arena doors shuddered as something heavy slammed against them. The Vex were trying to break through. "We need weapons," Olivia said. A new voice joined the conversation. "I might be able to help with that." They turned to see a stocky human man approaching. He wore the uniform of the station's engineering team. "Sam Rivera," he introduced himself. "I was doing maintenance when the attack started." "You're a station engineer?" Jake asked. Sam nodded. "And I know this place better than those four-armed freaks out there." Within minutes, Sam had led them to a maintenance access panel. While the Vex pounded on the main doors, the small group slipped into the service tunnels that ran throughout the station. "We need to reach the armory," Krex suggested. "Proper weapons will even the odds." Sam shook his head. "The Vex will have secured that area first. But," he grinned and patted his tool belt, "we don't need conventional weapons." To the aliens' amazement, Sam began collecting seemingly random items from maintenance cabinets: cleaning solutions, tool parts, electrical components. Under his direction, they began assembling makeshift weapons and traps. "The chemicals in this cleaning solution are highly flammable," he explained to a bewildered Exhril scientist. "Combined with this compressed air canister, we've got an improvised flamethrower." The Exhril, named Test, watched in fascination. "Your species thinks this way naturally, creating weapons from non-weapons. It's called improvisation," Olivia explained while helping Sam modify maintenance tools into defensive weapons. "Humans have been doing it throughout our history." Krex observed the humans working. "Your bodies may be smaller, but your minds are dangerous." As they worked, Test continued studying the humans. The Exhril scientist noticed something curious. Despite the obvious danger, the humans' hands remained steady, their focus intense. "Your stress response is fascinating," Test commented. "Most species either freeze or flee during threats. You become more focused." "Adrenaline," Olivia explained. "Fight or flight. Our bodies prepare us for either option." Test's compound eyes blinked in surprise. "You have a dual response system." Most evolved species have a single dominant response pattern based on their evolutionary niche. Their conversation was interrupted as Sam finished distributing the improvised weapons. Jake gathered everyone around a makeshift map of the station he'd drawn. "The Vex have control of most major systems," he explained. "But according to Sam, there's a secondary control center 3 levels up. If we can reach it, we might be able to restore communications and contact help." Jake outlined a plan using guerrilla tactics, quick strikes, misdirection, and the station's layout to their advantage. As he spoke, he noticed the council members watching him with new interest. "This way of thinking," the Vorith representative commented, their gaseous forms swirling thoughtfully, using the environment against a superior force. "It's not common among council species." "It's very human," Krex added, with what might have been respect in his voice. As they prepared to move out, Jake noticed something important. The aliens weren't looking down at the humans anymore. They were looking to them for leadership. "All right," Jake said. "Let's take back this station." Jake's plan to retake the secondary control center was working. 3 Vex guards lay unconscious, victims of surprise attacks using Sam's improvised weapons. The mixed group of humans and aliens moved quietly through service corridors, avoiding main pathways where Vex patrols were heaviest. "The control room is through that door," Sam whispered, pointing ahead. "But I count 5 Vex inside, all armed." Jake assessed their options. "We need a distraction." Olivia stepped forward. "I can draw them out. I'm faster than any of you." Before Jake could object, laser fire erupted from behind them. A Vex patrol had discovered their position. The group scattered for cover as energy bolts scorched the walls around them. "Go," Jake shouted to the others. "Get to the control room. We'll hold them here." Krex joined Jake at the barricade they'd hastily assembled. The Dravak's natural armor deflected glancing shots as he returned fire with a captured Vex weapon. Olivia sprinted toward the opposite corridor, drawing fire away from the main group. 3 Vex soldiers followed her, exactly as she'd hoped. Her Olympic training gave her an edge in speed and endurance, but a lucky shot grazed her shoulder. She stumbled but kept running. Meanwhile, Sam led Test and the Vorith representative toward the control room. The remaining Vex guards emerged to investigate the commotion, creating the opening they needed. Sam's improvised flash bomb temporarily blinded the Vex, allowing them to secure the control center. Olivia had led her pursuers on a chase through maintenance tunnels, but found herself cornered in a storage area. As the Vex closed in, a group of civilian aliens cowered behind cargo containers. Without hesitation, Olivia placed herself between the civilians and the approaching Vex. The lead Vex raised its weapon, but suddenly crumpled as Krex appeared behind it. Jake followed, taking down another Vex with precise strikes to vulnerable joint areas. The final Vex fired wildly, catching Olivia in the leg. She collapsed but still managed to throw her makeshift weapon, striking the Vex in the face. Jake finished the job, securing the area. The civilians, Olivia gasped through pain. "Are they safe?" Jake checked her wounds. "They're fine, but you need medical attention." Back at the control center, Sam had successfully restored partial systems. "I've activated emergency protocols and sent a distress signal. Help should arrive within hours." Station security feeds showed Vex forces beginning to retreat in the face of organized resistance. The communication system crackled to life with reports from throughout the station as other survivors fought back using the humans' tactics. Jake carried Olivia to the station's medical bay, where alien doctors examined her injuries. "Fascinating healing response," commented the chief medical officer, a 6-limbed being with specialized sensory appendages. "Her body is already beginning tissue repair." Krex stood nearby, watching the proceedings with interest. "How soon will she recover?" "Sooner than most species would," the doctor replied. "Human cellular regeneration rates exceed galactic averages by 22%. Their immune response is equally impressive." Jake sat beside Olivia's bed as the medical staff treated her wounds. "You didn't have to put yourself at risk like that." "Those civilians couldn't defend themselves," she replied simply. "Someone had to." In another part of the medical bay, Tist was analyzing combat footage captured during the fighting. The extral scientist called over several council members. "Observe the human named Jake," Tist said, pointing to a recording. "His mass is approximately 1/8 that of a Vex soldier, yet he was able to disable opponents through targeted strikes and leverage techniques." The Vorith representative's gaseous form pulsed thoughtfully. "Their strength-to-weight ratio exceeds most species we've encountered." "Pound for pound," Krex said, using the human phrase he'd learned. "They deliver more force than their size suggests possible." The council members watched additional footage of the humans during the crisis. Their quick decision-making, their willingness to risk themselves for others, their adaptability in using unfamiliar environments. "Perhaps," the Vorith representative suggested, "we have been measuring the wrong qualities when assessing species for council membership." As Olivia rested, medical scans recorded her rapid healing. The alien doctors exchanged curious glances. These humans were full of surprises. 2 days after the attack, Nexus Station had largely returned to normal operations. Repair crews worked to fix damaged sections while security forces maintained vigilance against further Vex incursions. The formal assessment of humanity had resumed, though in a markedly different atmosphere. Jake stood before the council members in a hastily repurposed conference room. Olivia sat nearby, her leg still bandaged but healing quickly. We were discussing humanity's qualifications for council membership before the unfortunate interruption, began the crystalline being who headed the council. Recent events have provided additional context for our deliberations. Krex, now surprisingly supportive of the humans, nodded in agreement. Their actions during the crisis revealed qualities that formal tests cannot measure. Just as the council prepared to continue, a station security officer burst into the room. All eyes turned to the flustered Shrill. "Urgent news," the officer chittered. "Our intelligence division has analyzed the Vex attack pattern. It wasn't a random raid. It was a coordinated first strike. Our long-range sensors have detected a large Vex fleet mobilizing at the edge of council space." The room erupted in concerned murmurs and clicks. The head counselor raised a crystalline appendage for silence. "If this information is accurate, we face a serious threat. The Vex have never amassed forces of this magnitude before." Jake stepped forward. "Council members, if I may speak freely." The head counselor gestured permission. "The Vex attack on Nexus Station was likely a test of your defenses and response capabilities," Jake explained. "On Earth, we call this probing for weaknesses before a major offensive." "And how would humans respond to such a threat?" asked the Vorith representative. "We would prepare for war," Jake said simply, "and humanity would like to offer its full participation in the defense of council space." This bold statement caused another stir among the council members. With respect, a previously silent council member spoke. "Humans are physically smaller than most species in the galaxy. Your technology is less advanced. What meaningful contribution could Earth make to galactic warfare?" Jake was about to respond when the conference room door opened again. A human woman entered and walked confidently to Jake's side. Lisa Chen, Earth Defense Force Tactical Advisor. She introduced herself with a crisp nod. "I was dispatched as soon as we received word of the situation." Lisa activated a holographic projector she carried. "With your permission, I'd like to present some relevant information about humanity's experience with warfare." The council granted permission, and Lisa began her presentation. She displayed historical images of human conflicts throughout Earth's history, along with tactical analyses and evolution of military doctrine. "Humans have been fighting wars since before we had written language," she explained. "Our entire history has been shaped by conflict, forcing us to become extremely innovative in how we approach warfare." The council members watched with growing discomfort as Lisa detailed humanity's capacity for both destruction and heroism. "Our smaller size and lack of natural weapons pushed us to develop tools and tactics that offset these disadvantages." Lisa continued. "We've mastered asymmetric warfare, guerrilla tactics, psychological operations, and combined arms doctrine." She showed examples of how numerically inferior forces had defeated larger, better-equipped enemies throughout human history. But perhaps our most relevant quality, Lisa concluded, is that humans fight hardest when protecting others. The recent actions of Jake Miller and Olivia Bennett demonstrate this fundamental aspect of our psychology. When the presentation ended, the council chamber remained silent for several moments. The head counselor finally spoke. "This is disturbing information. Your species seems uniquely adapted for warfare." Jake stepped forward again. "We're also uniquely motivated for peace. We've learned hard lessons from our conflicts. That's why we seek membership in the council, to be part of something larger than ourselves." The council members conferred among themselves in hushed tones. Finally, they returned their attention to the humans. "We will need time to discuss this new information," the head counselor announced. "But given the Vex threat, we will accept human assistance in the coming conflict." As the meeting adjourned, Krex approached Jake. "Your species frightens me now," the Dravak admitted. "But I'm glad you fight on our side." The Vex fleet appeared at the edge of council space 3 weeks later. 17 battle groups of sleek, predatory ships moved with coordinated precision toward key council worlds. The Galactic Defense Force scrambled to respond, with ships from 7 member species forming a protective line. Among them was a small contingent of human vessels. Though fewer in number and less advanced than most Council ships, they had been integrated into the defense strategy based on Lisa Chen's tactical recommendations. Jake had been given command of a mixed-species special operations team aboard the Council cruiser Celestial Guardian. The Vex outnumber us 3-1, reported Test, who had joined Jake's team as science officer. The X-Shrill's compound eyes studied the tactical display with concern. "Numbers aren't everything," Jake replied calmly. "We have position and motivation on our side." Olivia, fully recovered and serving as the team's infiltration specialist, pointed to a cluster of Vex ships. "Their formation suggests they're protecting something valuable in the center." Krex, who had surprisingly volunteered to join Jake's team, growled in agreement. "Their command ship. If we could disable it, their coordination would suffer." The first engagement began moments later. Vex ships launched a devastating opening salvo, crippling 3 Council vessels before they could respond. The battle quickly became chaotic as ships maneuvered for advantage in the 3-dimensional battlefield of space. On the command deck of the Celestial Guardian, Jake watched as his human colleagues demonstrated their value. Human pilots showed remarkable adaptability, using maneuvers that other species considered too risky. Human tactical officers suggested unconventional solutions that confused the normally methodical Vex. "Fascinating," commented a Vorath commander, observing the human ships. "They're intentionally taking damage to maintain optimal firing positions." Lisa Chen, coordinating from the central command ship, explained over the comm channel. "Humans can compartmentalize pain and fear. Our ships will continue fighting even when severely damaged, as long as key systems remain functional." The battle raged for hours. Council ships displayed their evolutionary advantages. Dravak gunners with natural strength that allowed them to manually operate weapons when power systems failed. Shrill navigators whose compound eyes could track dozens of enemy ships simultaneously. Vorath engineers who could directly manipulate electromagnetic fields to repair damaged systems. But it was the humans' contribution that surprised everyone. Their ability to improvise when plans failed, to function despite exhaustion, to make decisions under extreme pressure. These qualities proved invaluable as the battle progressed. Despite these efforts, the Vex slowly gained the upper hand through superior numbers. Council ships were forced into a defensive posture, protecting civilian evacuation routes from vulnerable worlds. "We can't win by conventional means," Jake told his team as they gathered in the Celestial Guardian's tactical room. "We need to neutralize their command ship." "Impossible," Krex stated. "Their defensive screen is impenetrable." Jake smiled. "Nothing's impenetrable. We just need to approach the problem differently." He outlined his plan: a high-risk operation to infiltrate the Vex command ship using a captured Vex shuttle. Olivia would lead the infiltration team, while Jake coordinated from the Celestial Guardian. "This plan violates 14 Council combat protocols," Test noted, mandibles clicking nervously. "That's why it might work," Olivia replied. "The Vex follow patterns. They won't expect this." Hours later, Olivia's team successfully boarded the Vex command ship. Their progress was tracked anxiously by Jake and the others. When they reached the central control node, Olivia planted devices designed by Sam Rivera, not to destroy the ship, but to override its communication systems. "Now," Jake ordered when Olivia's team was safely extracted. The devices activated, broadcasting a cascading series of contradictory commands throughout the Vex fleet. Ships began moving erratically, colliding with each other or firing on friendly vessels. The carefully coordinated Vex attack dissolved into confusion. Council forces seized the opportunity, pressing their advantage against the disorganized enemy. The Vex command ship, unable to regain control of its fleet, retreated along with its remaining escorts. On the Celestial Guardian's bridge, Council officers watched in amazement as the Vex fleet withdrew. "How did you know that would work?" Krex asked Jake. "I didn't," Jake admitted, "but humans have learned that sometimes you have to take chances when the odds are against you." As damage reports came in, one fact became clear. The Council worlds had been saved, not by overwhelming firepower, but by adaptability, courage, and unconventional thinking. The Grand Chamber of the Galactic Council was filled to capacity. Representatives from every member species occupied their designated areas, with additional spectators watching from elevated galleries. At the center of the chamber stood Jake, Olivia, Lisa, and Sam, the four humans who had played crucial roles in defeating the Vex threat. 2 months had passed since the battle. The Vex had retreated to the far reaches of known space, their fleet scattered, and their invasion plans in ruins. Council worlds celebrated their victory while beginning the long process of rebuilding damaged infrastructure. The head councilor's crystalline form glowed brightly as the formal proceedings began. We gather today to consider the application of humanity for full membership in the Galactic Council. Holograms appeared around the chamber showing key moments from the recent conflict. Human ships continuing to fight despite severe damage. Olivia's team infiltrating the Vex command ship. Jake's unconventional tactics that had turned the tide of battle. The assessment of a new species typically focuses on technological advancement, biological capabilities, and cultural stability. The head counselor continued. Humanity's evaluation has been unconventional. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the assembled aliens. Many had witnessed the humans in action firsthand. I wish to speak, Krex announced, rising from his seat among the Dravik delegation. The massive reptilian moved to the speaker's position, towering over the humans. When I first met these humans, Krex began, I saw only their physical limitations, their lack of natural weapons, their smaller size, their shorter lifespans. I believe these qualities made them inferior. Krex turned to face the four humans. I was wrong. What I perceive as weaknesses were actually the source of their greatest strengths. The chamber was silent as Krex continued. Because humans lack natural armor, they learn to create extraordinary defenses. Because they lack claws and fangs, they develop tools more versatile than any natural weapon. Because their bodies are relatively fragile, they became experts at treating injuries and diseases. The Extrial scientist Test joined Krex at the speaker's position. My research confirms this assessment. Human evolutionary history created unique adaptations. Their endurance exceeds most species. Their ability to recover from injury is remarkable. Their stress responses actually enhance performance rather than inhibiting it. Other council members offered their perspectives. The Vorith representative spoke of humanity's innovative thinking under pressure. A Dravik military commander praised their tactical flexibility. The chief medical officer detailed their impressive immune systems and cellular regeneration capabilities. After all testimonies were given, Jake was invited to address the council. He walked to the center of the chamber, looking around at the diverse assembly of alien life forms. Council members, my species has spent much of its history overcoming limitations. We aren't the strongest, the fastest, or the most naturally gifted species in the galaxy. But those very limitations forced us to become adaptable, to innovate, to cooperate. Jake gestured to his fellow humans. We don't ask to join the council because we're perfect. We ask to join because we believe in what you're building here. A community of different species with different strengths, working together for the common good. The council withdrew to deliberate, leaving the chamber buzzing with speculation. An hour later, they returned to announce their decision. The head counselor's voice resonated throughout the chamber. After careful consideration, the Galactic Council unanimously approves humanity's application for full membership. Cheers erupted from many delegations. Jake and his companions exchanged relieved glances. As the formal ceremony concluded, Krex approached the humans one last time. The massive Dravak had become an unlikely ally and friend. Your species has taught us all a valuable lesson, Krex said. True strength isn't always visible at first glance. He extended a clawed hand to Jake, who shook it firmly despite the size difference. Pound for pound, humans remain the deadliest species in the galaxy, Krex announced loudly enough for nearby delegations to hear. And I, for one, am grateful they fight alongside us rather than against us. As the humans prepared to send word back to Earth about humanity's new status in the galactic community, Jake reflected on their journey. They had come to Nexus Station feeling small and insignificant among the towering aliens and advanced civilizations. They were leaving as equals, respected not despite their differences, but because of them.